All right, so let's talk about the hardware. Both phones look very similar and they both feel super similar as well. The 16E being a little bit lighter, coming in at 167 grams versus the 171 on the 15. Matte finish on both, so they always look, pretty clean, and they feel exactly the same. They're basically the same height as well too. Where you will see a hardware difference is with the action button. So the 15 does not have the action button. The action button is basically a universal, button where you could change it to really anything you want. So if I wanted to add that shortcut, I could put it to any application I want. So it's a pretty, cool little button to have for sure. And that is pretty much it with the hardware. Both of them are IP68 dust and water resistant, so we got that. And they're both Type C as well too. All right, so this is a difference that you will actually notice. So the 16E has a 6.1 inch XDR OLED display. It's HDR10, but it only goes up to 1200 nits peak brightness. It's 1170 by 2532, and it's 460 for the PPI. It does have these ceramic shield glass, and it's a pretty nice display here, like color-wise and resolution-wise. Everything looks very sharp. It does have this, outdated notch here, which does make it look a little bit older. Now, it does have 86% screen to body ratio on here as well, so you can see that the bezels look a little bit thicker than the 15. Now, the 15 also has a very similar display. It's also the XDR OLED HDR10, but this one goes up to 2000 nits peak brightness, and it does have pretty similar resolution at 1179 by 2556, 461 for the PPI. Again, the ceramic shield glass. So they're both, the same size display at 6.1 inches. It has the dynamic island, which you can, kind of interact with. And honestly, the colors look pretty much the same on both phones. So like I said, looking at both phones and just looking at the icons and everything, they look extremely similar. But outdoors in direct sunlight, the 16E is noticeably like dimmer. It's harder to see than the 15. Besides that, it's just really aesthetic difference here if you want a more, modern looking display, because they're both 60 hertz panels, so they both are gonna, feel and look the same for the most part. It's just an overall aesthetic thing. The 15 display just overall looks better with the slimmer bezels and the punch hole or the dynamic island. All right, so here's the thing that a lot of people probably struggle with here with this upgrade. So of course they're both running iOS 26. You have the Apple A16 chip on the 15, and then we have 128 gigs of internal storage, 6 gigs of RAM. On the 16E, we actually have the Apple A18 chipset, 128 gigs and 8 gigs of RAM. So basically what this means is that the 16E is going to be a little bit quicker, and it's also going to be able to keep apps in the background as well. And because they gave this phone the 8 gigs of RAM, you also have the Apple Intelligence that you can use, and the 15 does not because it has that RAM limitation. So we can access the Apple Intelligence Assistant. We can do the Apple AI. I can't even remember what they call it. I never use it, but it works like Google Lens. You just take a picture of something and it'll scan it, or you can ask the questions. But yeah, it has the AI features. Me personally, I think the Apple Intelligence isn't really that great. But if that's something that you want to use, then I would say, for sure, it could be useful. But for me, in my experience, especially with Assistant, I don't find it to be really all that useful. So I think it's not really a big deal that it doesn't have the Apple Intelligence. But again, over time, it could get better. So, that might be something you want to, mess with. You have the emoji thing on here. That you can create your own emojis. And I would say, as far as speed, I would say there's really no real speed difference here. Let me show you guys the Wildlife Extreme test. And for some reason, the 15 actually scored higher than the 16E for some reason. I'm not really sure, but it really doesn't matter, the speed between these two phones, because they feel exactly the same. The 15 is just as fast as the 16E. Let's go to Google Earth. So you guys can see they're going to pull stuff up the same. They're going to load stuff up the same. Now, maybe down the line, maybe we'll see a difference here. But I mean, right now, there's virtually no difference with how animations are looking, how it's loading up apps. It's just no difference, guys. So I wouldn't let that be a big decision factor. because it's really like going back and forth between these two, like opening apps. I mean, they're both very smooth, and they're very powerful phones, both of them. So yeah, I would say, if you want to try the AI stuff, then that would probably be your reason to get the 16E. A lot of people, you might be curious about it. They have stuff like the object eraser and all that stuff. But like I said, it's not really that good. So I wouldn't get too hyped about it, honestly. But yeah, you guys can see it feels the same. Let's launch PUBG. All right, so both phones do a very good job with gaming, guys. So if you do want to do some gaming on here, PUBG, Genshin, Call of Duty, all the popular titles work really well. The main thing here is that because, they're both 60 hertz, they both have, are going to give you similar performance in gaming. One of the main things that I was looking for was if one phone was going to be overheating. But that's not the case. They actually feel extremely similar. So again, you can play games basically the same. There is virtually no difference here between the two that I could feel. So I think that's, it's a good thing. So I would say, yeah, the A18 is definitely going to give you some stronger benchmarks like we saw in that Geekbench. But the 15 is still ridiculously fast as well too. But yeah, you gotta kind of make that decision on whether you think Apple Intelligence is useful. Again, my personal opinion, I don't think so. But as far as performance, I would say they're very similar. Check out these speakers at max volume. We'll start with the 16. I would give it to the 16E. They both sound extremely good, and I was really surprised they actually both did a really good job with the low notes on the bass. A lot of smaller phones can't get those low notes, like you can barely hear them on a smaller phone. I can hear them perfectly, like clearly on both of these phones. The 16E sounds a little bit more crispier, and it sounds a little bit cleaner. Yeah, the 16E just sounds cleaner. So both phones, excellent job in just overall giving you a nice full sound. Both have a good amount of bass, but the 16E sounds like way cleaner. All right, so this is going to be the main decision maker here. The iPhone 15 has 2 cameras and the 16E has 1 camera. So you have a 48 megapixel standard and a 12 megapixel ultra wide on the 15. Now, this phone can only punch into 10 times zoom, of course, because there's no, telephoto lens on these phones. It does shoot in 4K, 24 through 60, 12 megapixel selfie that shoots in also 4K, 24 through 60. The iPhone 16e does have a single camera setup. It is a 48 megapixel standard. It can shoot in 4K, 24 through 60, and then we have a 12 megapixel selfie that also shoots in 4K 24 through 60. So similar specs besides the of course besides the ultra wide. So it really comes down to how you think how the photos are coming out and how they look, how the video look, and that'll pretty much be the deciding factor. I'll let you guys choose here, but this one also zooms at 10 times as well too. So what do you guys think? Are the photos on the 16e, the main stills, better than the 15 or vice versa? All right, so this is also something you should take note of. Battery life is pretty good on both. Where the 16E, where you might run into a problem, it really depends. This phone does not have any MagSafe, so you can't attach like the magnetic MagSafe accessories to this phone. So it is kind of unfortunate. It does have wireless charging, but it does not have the MagSafe for whatever reason. I still have no clue. I think it was a horrible move for Apple to actually do that. But yeah, the battery is it's a little bit better. Battery life is a little bit better on the 16E. Standby time is better. This is probably due to the one slightly bigger battery and then the more efficient chipset on here. So we have a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, and then we also do have on the 15 a 3,349. But we also do have MagSafe on the 15. So just something to note. And also the charging. So you have Qi 2 charging on the iPhone 15 as well. So overall, it's going to charge a little bit faster wirelessly, which, most people may not even care. But yeah, I think the situation is pretty interesting. So if you ask me personally, I would probably go with the 15. For me personally, I just like the display a lot more. I don't really care about Apple Intelligence, and I don't necessarily care that the 16E has a newer processor. It's not really that big of a deal because both displays are really limited and they perform the same. You get the ultra wide, so if you have a situation where you need to have multiple, or like you're taking a group photo or something like that, you can punch out. But it really just depends, guys, what you thought about the photos and what you think about Apple Intelligence and stuff like that. So let me know what you guys are thinking. I'm very curious myself.